Welcome to this predicted paper from onmaths. This paper represents the best guess for the upcoming exams. Please use this paper in addition to your other revision. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing. Enjoy! For us to create the largest number, we need to pick the biggest digits for the start of the number. So the biggest digit is 7, then 6, then 4, then 3. But the question says it wants the largest even number, so we need to just swap the last two around to make sure that it is even. So our answer is 7,634. To find the factors of 30, we're just going to write down all the factor pairs or all the pairs of numbers that multiply together to make 30. So 1 times 30 is 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10. Now 4 doesn't go because 30 is not in the 4 times table. 5 times 6, and we notice that if we pick 6, it's just going to be 6 times 5, it's just going to be the opposite. So the factors are all the numbers that we've just written down, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, and 30. Whenever we multiply two negatives, we always get a positive, so we know our answer will be positive. We're going to do 9 times 12, which is going to be 108, and v times v, which is going to be v squared. So if we just add the amount of sides each of these shapes has, a triangle has 3 sides, quadrilateral 4, pentagon 5, hexagon 6, and notice what's happening with the number of edges. They're multiplied by 3. Each time they're multiplied by 3. So all we need to do is get the 15, multiply it by 3, which will be 45. So there will be 45 edges. If you imagine these numbers written out as a list, there would be 5 lots of zeros. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There'd be 9 lots of 1. So 1, 1, etc., etc. Okay, so when we're looking to see the total number of goals scored in the season, we could write them out as a list and then add them up. But a quicker way of doing that is just multiplying the amount of goals by the frequency. So we've got 5 lots of 0 goals, which will just be 0. 9 lots of 1 goal, so that's just 9. 4 lots of 2 goals, so that's 8. 6 lots of 3 goals, that's 18. And then 6 lots of 4 goals, so that's 24. So all we need to do now is add up the 0, 9, 8, 18 and 24, which brings us to 59. So there were 59 goals scored. When collecting terms, you've got to collect like terms. So we've got 13x, we've got a 3y. Now they're not like terms, but the 13x is a like term to the 7x. They're both x's. And the 3y is a like term to the 2y. So let's put the x's together. 13 lots of x plus 7 lots of x. And let's put the y's together. 3 lots of y plus 2 lots of y. So altogether we've got 13 lots of x plus 7 lots of x. Well, that's going to be 20 lots of x. And for the y's, we've got 3 lots of y plus 2 lots of y. That's going to be 5 lots of y. So our answer is 20x plus 5y. If we write in how many sides each shape has, triangle has 3, quadrilateral 4, pentagon 5, hexagon 6, you'll notice the number of vertices is twice the amount of each of them. So if a shape has 15 sides, we just times that by 2 and it will have 30 vertices. This coordinate is telling us to go 2 to the left from the center. We go right when it's positive, we go left when it's negative, so it's 2 to the right. And then it's telling us to go 1 up. It's up because it's positive. So we need to go 1 up, and we get to the coordinate of B. So the coordinate we get to is B. And so we just look at the -2 on the x-axis and the 1 on the y-axis, and that is where point B is. To find the midpoint, we can use this simple formula. And we're going to start off by finding the midpoint for the x component. And the formula is just adding the two x coordinates and dividing by 2. So we're just going to add the two x coordinates together. So we've got 2 plus -1 divided by 2. And that's going to be 1/2, or 0.5. We'll do the same thing for the y coordinates. And the formula is the same, but just with adding the y coordinates together and dividing by 2. So it's going to be -5 plus 2. All of that divided by 2. So that's going to be -3 over 2, or -1.5. So what we can do here is we can do 3 divided by 7. To find out what 3 is a percentage of 7, find out what that is as a decimal, which would be 0.428, blah, blah, blah. And then to convert a decimal into a percentage, we times by 100, so we can get that 0.428, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to times it by 100, and that will be 42.857. And it wants it to the nearest percent, so that's going to round to 43%. So you do need to know the parts of a circle. So the full distance around the circle is called the circumference. If you've got a little bit of it, it's an arc. If you've got a line across it, that would be a chord. And the part that's kind of trapped in there is called a segment. Then if you've got a line across the circle going through the centre, that's a diameter. If you've got a line just going to the centre, if I can draw it properly, then that's called a radius. If you've got a line that touches the circle just on one point, like that, that's a tangent. But in this case, we have a sector. So the pass mark for the test is here, and we can see that there are 2 students who passed the test. So it's 2 students out of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in total. And we want this as a percentage, so we're going to times it by 100%. So we do 2 over 7 times 100, and that gives us 28.571, blah, blah, blah. And it says it wants it to the nearest percent, so that will be 29%. So we're going to find out the multiplier first. We do that by starting with 100%, and it says it increased by 11.2%. So we're just going to add 11.2%. which will give us 111.2%. Then we can make that into a decimal by dividing by 100. And this will make it into a multiplier. So it's 1.112. That's our multiplier. And the beauty of a multiplier is all we do is we get our amount, which is 840, and multiply it by the multiplier. And it will do all the hard work for us and give us the answer of 934.08. Going to first of all work out how many parts there are in total. So we've got James with 9 parts, 6 for Andy, and 7 for Tia. So in total we've got 9 plus 6 plus 7, which is 22 parts in total. And we're asked to find a fraction Tia receives. Now Tia's the last one, so she is receiving the 7 parts. So it's 7 out of 22. So firstly, we're going to work out what the percentage increases are as a multiplier. So we start off with 100%. Jane has a 1.2% interest pay rise, sorry, and so that would be 101.2%, and we divide that by 100 to make it a multiplier. So the multiplier is 1.012. So we get the 20,000 times it by 1.012, and that gives us 240. Next we do the same for Lenny, so that is Jane. And so let's do Lenny. And so that's 100% plus the 1.5% will be 101.5%. Make that a multiplier, 101.5%. We divide that by 100, which gives us 1.015. And then finally what we do is we get the 17,000 times it by the multiplier. And when we do that, we get 255. So Lenny has 255, Jane has 240. So it says which of the employees has a larger pay increase and by how much. So the answer will be Lenny, and it's by £15 because that's the difference between these. First thing we need to do is work out the area of the wall, and so to do that we're just going to multiply the 44 by the 40. So 44 times 40 is 1,760. And next thing we notice is that each tin covers 10 meters squared. So it actually means we can work out the fact that there are 1,760 meters squared in total for our wall. And if each tin covers 10 meters squared, then we will need 176 tins. That's the amount of tins we need. And each tin costs £5.70, so it'd be 176 times the 5.7, or yeah, £5.70, or you could do it as 570 pence and convert it at the end. And that gives us a price of 1,003.2. And so as money, that would be £1,003.20. I'm going to start by writing out all the outcomes. So I'm going to start with trout. So for trout, as a main, I could have had biscuits for dessert. Trout as a main, I could have had cheesecake for dessert. Trout as a main, I could have pancakes as a dessert. Then I'm going to move on to a curry for main. So for curry for main, I could have had biscuits, could have had cheesecake, and I could have had pancakes. Now, to work out the probability, it's the amount of successful outcomes over the total amount of outcomes. So successful for this is a curry and pancakes. So curry and pancakes is a successful outcome, so it's just 1. The total amount are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the chance of me picking at random a curry and pancakes is 1 over 6. So there's a few different ways of working out this question, but they all involve working out the area of the cross-section. And the cross-section is the part here. So we want to work out the area of this. And what we can do, and this is one of the methods, is we can work out the area of the full rectangle, which will be 28 by 19. I'm going to call this A. And then we can take away the little part that is not there. So the missing part, which is going to be 14 across. We've got to do a bit of maths here to work out how high it is. So we've got 28 in total, 21 we don't want, so that would be 7 high. We're going to call this B. So work out the area of A. It's going to be 28 times 19. Which is 532. Work out the area of B, which is going to be 98. And then to work out the area of the cross-section, we're going to do the big rectangle, take away the small one, take away the bit we have missing, and that will leave 434. Now the volume of any prism is area of cross-section, so cross-section area times the length. So our area of cross-section is 434. Our length is basically how 3D the shape is, so it's going to be 10. and so that would be 4,340. So our answer is 4,340 centimetres cubed. So 7 times 10 to the power 4 is going to be 7, and it's going to be 70,000. And 9 times 10 to the power of 7 will be 90 million. And so when you add them together, you get 9007000. Now, if you have access to a calculator, if this is on the calculator paper, then you can just type it into your calculator. Some people think there's a quick way of doing this, like adding the 7 and the 9. There isn't. You've just got to work out what this number is, work out what this number is, and add them together. We know that when you multiply powers with the same base, and here we've got all these as base v, you add the powers. So we're actually looking at what do we add to 11, which is this one here, to get to the 15. 11 plus 4 is 15. So w therefore equals 4. I'm going to start this question by writing down what we know. So we know that the toy car initially is travelling at 12 meters per second. So the u is going to be 12 meters per second. It then accelerates at 5 meters per second squared. So we've got an acceleration. And it's for 13 seconds, so that's the time. And we're asked to find the displacement. Now, displacement is just a fancy way of saying distance, but it's a vector distance. So we need to look at the formulae at the top and figure out which one we're going to use. We'll notice we don't have a v at all in this question, so we'll cross out the ones that involve a v, and that leaves the middle one. So let's write that out. S equals ut plus half at squared. Now we're looking for s, and u is 12 and t is 13. So 12 times 13 plus half times the a, which is 5, times 13 squared. Put that into a calculator and you get 578.5. So it's going to be 578.5 meters. So when you read this question, the question's basically asking you to find the bearing of O from B. So the lifeboat is at B, so I'm going to draw a north line here. And to find a bearing, you start from the north line and you keep going clockwise. So we're going to look for this angle here. Now, this angle, which is given to us in the question, and this angle here, which I'm just going to call x, are going to be equal. So x is going to equal 135 degrees. And the reason for that is we've basically got, and I'm just going to draw or extend the north line down, because we've basically got we have a set of parallel lines here, and we have a set of z angles, which we know is alternate angles. So the reason for that is it's alternate angles. And always show the reasons to the examiner. Okay, and so to find out what the bearing is, so the bearing of O from B, it's just going to be 360 take away 135, and the reason for that is angles on a point. We've run out of space. Okay, so we're going to do 360 take away 135, which is 225, and so our answer is 225. So the symbol here basically means and the way I remember it is if you draw that symbol and just put a line through it, you can make the word and. So we're looking at the probability of getting something that is in A and C. So the only ones that are in A and C are this 8 and this 9 here. So we're going to just add the 8 and the 9 together. which give us 17. Now we need to then work out how many numbers there are in total, so that's all of them. So 4 plus 8 plus 9 plus 5 plus 8 plus 3 plus 11 plus 6. So we need the total, which is 54. And then we get the 17, and we put that over the amount in total, so over 54. So if we imagine we've got the 25 meter pipe here, and we've got the 35 meter pipe here, the question's basically asking us what can we cut all these pipes into, and they all have to be the same length that will fit with the 25 meter and the 35 meter. And essentially what this question is asking is, what is the highest common factor of 25 and 35? So to find the highest common factor, what we do is we just find the factors of 25, which is 1 and 25 and 5 and 5, and the factors of 35, which will be 1 and 35 and 5 and 7. And the highest common factor is the number in both lists, the highest number in both lists, so it's 5. So what we can do is we can cut all of these pipes into 5 meter pipes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, not to scale, and then 7 of these, so 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. And so there's 7 in total. So each of these are 5 meter long, and there's no wastage. And that's the longest we can make the pipes for there to be no wastage at all. So my answer is 5 meters. So factorise means to put it into a bracket, and it looks like it's a quadratic here, but it's actually just a linear factorising, because we don't have a number term. So we're going to just use one bracket for this. And looking at these terms, I'm going to focus first on the numbers. So 20 and 30, I can divide both of those by 10, and that will leave 2 and 3. So that's the numbers done. Next, I'm looking at the t terms. So we've got t squared there and a t there. So we can divide out a t, but that will leave a t on the first term. And finally, I'm going to look at the u, and there's just a u on both of them I can factorise out, and actually that just leaves nothing on the inside of the bracket. Now, always when you do this, expand the bracket to check if you've made any mistakes. So I'm going to do smiles and rainbows. There's loads of different methods. So 10 times 2 is 20, t times t is t squared, and then the u, plus 10 times 3 is 30, times t times u. So we know we've got the right answer. So our answer is 10tu brackets 2t plus 3. So first thing to realise is that the formula for a volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h. So what we need to do first of all is work out the volume of the water butt that James currently has. So we're going to do the volume equals pi times the radius, which is 89 squared, times the height, which is 189. And when we do that, we get 1497,069 lots of pi. And I'll keep this in terms of pi just for simplicity. Now, what we want is we want the volume to stay the same. So we're going to keep that as the volume, 1497,069 pi. But we want the radius to change. So instead of the radius being 89, we want the radius to be 103. So times 103 squared. And we're trying to work out what the height is. Okay, so first thing we can do actually is just cross off the pi's from both sides. We don't really need them at all. And then we can get our solving things in, our solving lines, and we can divide both sides by the 103 squared. And on the left hand side we get 141.113 blah blah blah, and on the right hand side we get h. So the height will be 141.113. It says it wants it to 2 decimal places, so that would be 141.11. So the first thing we need to do is work out the mean for the data in the table. So to start off doing that, we're going to work out the midpoint of each group. So we've got 80 to 85, and to find the midpoint you add the 80 and the 85 together, then you divide by 2. So this will be 82.5, then 87.5, then 92.5, then 97.5, and then finally 100 plus 105 divided by 2 is 102.5. Next we need to find the FT, which is just the frequency times the duration of calls. Now in this first group we're not timesing it by 80 to 85 or anything like that, we're timesing it by the midpoint, so our midpoint effectively becomes the T. So we're going to do 15 times that, which will be 1237.5, and we're just going to keep going and multiplying each of these together. And then finally 2050. Right, next we need to add up the frequencies and add up the FTs. So we're going to have the sum of the frequencies. So I'm just adding all this column up, and that will be 80. And we have sum of the FT. And so we're going to just add this column up here. And so that would be 7,450. So what this column represents is all the numbers added up together. This column represents how many numbers we have. So to find the mean, it's all of the numbers added together, which will be 7,450, over the amount of numbers we have, which is 80. So when you do that, we get 93.125. Now this question is about the improvement that we've made, or that the manager has made, the call centre's made. So we're looking at subtracting the 93.125 away from the last week, which was 105. So we're looking for improvement. And we're going to do 105, take away the 93.125, and that's going to be 11.875. Now it does ask for 2 decimal places, so that will be 11.88. So the only way of answering this question is to work out what these are as ordinary numbers. And so 7 times 10 to the power of 7 would be 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9 times 10 to the power of 4 would be 90,000, so that would be 9,000,000, and so we're just subtracting them like that, and so we'll get 6991000. And obviously if this is on the calculator paper, just type it into your calculator. There are no tricks here. You can't do anything with the 7 and the 9. You're not subtracting powers or anything. You're just literally typing in what it says. And there's a button on the calculator like that you will need to use. So if you don't know what that is, ask your teacher or ask someone to help you out with that. To solve this, we've got to first of all factorise the left-hand side. And so we look at the number, and it's definitely a difference of 2 squareds. So x squared the square root of that will be x, and we think about what the square root of 144 is, which is 12, and so we plus 12 and we minus 12. So difference of 2 squares, you take the positive and the negative root. Now to solve, one of these brackets is going to equal to 0, so we're going to do the first bracket equal to 0, so we've got x plus 12 equals 0. and we're just going to put our lines down and take away 12 both sides, and we get x equals minus 12. So one of our solutions is minus 12, and we do exactly the same thing to the other bracket. So get it equal to 0 and solve. So add 12 both sides. You'll notice something about the numbers here, that they are just exactly the same, and that's because when you find a solution, you get the number here and you just change the sign, so that becomes minus 12 and that becomes plus 12. So it's really important, first of all, we make clear about how we convert things. So if I've got a unit in kilometers and I want to convert it into meters, then we know we just times it by 1,000. So 2 kilometers is 2,000 meters. But if I have something in kilometers squared and I want to convert it into meters squared, I actually times it by 1,000 squared, which is 1,000 times 1,000. Okay, so I'm actually timesing it by not 1,000, but 1,000 squared. So that's another 3 zeros. You can see here that that's a million. So we times it by a million. So 13 kilometers squared is going to be the 13, and then it's going to be times by a million. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be 13 million. Now, it says here the farmer must pay 1 pence tax for every metre squared. So this is going to be 13 million metres squared. And so that's going to cost him or her 13 million pence. But the answer is going to be in pounds. So we just need to get rid of 2 of the zeros at the end. So it's going to be 13, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be £130,000. The important thing to realise in this question is that we know a female has been selected. So we can just basically get rid of all of this part of the frequency tree because it's not relevant, because we know a female has been selected. So there's 29 females altogether, and we're looking for the probability that the female chosen at random picked action. So it's just simply 16 over 29. So I'm just going to write this out a little bit bigger, just so we've got a bit more room to play with. And I'm going to start by putting my tramlines in. Anytime it says solve, I always put my tramlines in. We can start by either multiplying out the bracket, or we can be clever and just divide by 5 both sides. And that'll leave 6x minus 39. And 15 divided by 5 is 3. Then I'm going to add the 39 to both sides. And so we've got 6x is greater than or equal to 39 plus 3, which would be 42. And then we're going to divide by 6 both sides. And we've got x is greater than or equal to 7. To draw a quadratic graph, we want to find as many values as we can. Because it's a curve, with a straight line graph you only need 3 points. With a curve you need as many as you can get. And now we're actually given a table here to fill out, and so I'm going to start off with a 0 here, and here we want to substitute in the x equals 0 into our equation. So we've got y equals x squared plus 11, so it's y equals 0 squared plus 11. 0 squared is just 0, plus 11 is going to be 11. We're going to do the same for 1, so y equals 1 squared plus 11. 1 squared is just 1, 1 plus 11 is 12. Same again for 2, 2 squared plus 11. 2 squared is 4, 4 plus 11 is 15. Now the minuses are a little bit more difficult, but not that much difficult, because when you square a negative you actually get a positive. So minus 1 squared is just 1, 1 plus 11 is 12. And then minus 2 squared plus 11, minus 2 squared is 4, 4 plus 11 is just 15. Now you can see here we get a nice little symmetry, and we're going to plot this onto our graph here. So 11 is going to be here. 12 is going to be here. So both of these are 12. And 15 is going to be here. Now when you join them up, what you want to do is avoid having a V. Okay, in the mark scheme specifically it says that the bottom needs to be nice and smooth, and avoid something called feathering where it looks like that. You just want one smooth line. Now the best way I find of doing it is turn the page sideways, which I can't do with mine, but you can turn your page sideways and just one smooth line, and we're going to do a nice smooth bottom there. And I just need to lift, try not to lift with yours, and that should be good enough for full marks. Let's just try it again, just have a bit more of a lift like that. That's also good, and I can do this all day. Like the ones that are bad are the ones with gaps, or the ones where they miss points. So if you had yours like this, where it just missed that point out, or something like that, that would not give you the mark. You just want one nice smooth, just slip there a little bit, nice smooth, and that probably wouldn't, because you can see that I've kind of hesitated there. So it just takes practice, and as I said, if you turn the page sideways, it's a lot easier to draw a C than a U. So the distance initially travelled is going to be 14 kilometres for this stint here. And then we have a bit of a rest. A horizontal and distance time graph is essentially stopped. But then here we start up again to go home. And so that's another 14 kilometres travelled. So in total there has been 28 kilometres travelled. So we're just going to copy this out first of all. So we've got x equals y over 15. Now we're asked to make y the subject, which means we want y on its own. What's stopping y from being on its own? Well, it's divided by 15. That's what over means. It means divide. So how do we get rid of that divide by 15? Well, we do the inverse or the opposite, which is times 15. So we go times both sides by 15. X times 15 is 15x, and it will get rid of this fraction here and just leave y. So y is 15x. So we're going to first of all convert the 11 litres into millilitres. So we're going to do 11 times 1,000, which would be 11,000. Okay, so we're going to just draw a line, like a number line, and we're going to have the 11,000 in the middle. Now, what would be the next one down if we're looking at to the nearest 10 mil? So we're going to add a 10 mil on, which will be 11,010, and we're going to take the 10 mil away. So 11,000 take away 10 mil will be 10, 990. Now when we're looking at limits with the upper and lower part of it, we are looking at halfway points. So halfway here and halfway here. So this halfway point will be 10,995, and the next one will be 11,005, and that's the halfway points. And so that is going to be our upper and lower bound. And we just need to say that V can be anything above the 10,995 and including that, and it can be anything below 11,005, but it can't include that, because if it did, if it was 11,005, it would have rounded up to 11,010. So what's happened here is that the company's increased the amount of sweets by 15%. So we're just going to focus on that and work out what the multiplier would be first. So they started off with 100%, and they added 15%, and then therefore they ended up with 115%. And to find that as a multiplier, we get the 115 and divide it by 100, and that gives us 1.15. So that is the multiplier they used. Now they used that multiplier on the original amount, and they times it by 1.15, and they got the answer of 69. But if we're working the other way to find out what they times by 1.15, we get that 69 and we divide it by the multiplier. So if we want to work out what the original number was, we divide it by the multiplier, and that gives us 60. So the answer will be 60. So we need to first of all work out what the length of the side of the square is. And to do that, what we do is we get the 44v to the power 4 w to the power 5, and we just divide it by 4. And to do that, all we need to do is just divide the coefficient by 4. So it'd be 11v to the power 4 w to the power 5. Some people will try and do something with the v to the power 4 w to the power 5, but if you think about it, if I just draw out my square, if it's 11v to the power 4 w to the power 5 all the way around, when you add, you don't add the v to the power 4 w to the power 5, it's just going to be 11 lots, another 11 lot, another lot of 11, and another lot of 11. So it's 44 v to the power 4 w to the power 5 in total. And to work out what the area is, we obviously are going to square that. So we're going to do 11v to the power 4 w to the power 5, and we're going to just times it by itself, which is what squaring means. Okay, so we're going to times the 11s together, so that's going to be 121. Going to times the v to the power 4s together, and remember with indices, if you times two powers of the same base and they're both v, then we just add the powers together, so that'd be 8, and we're going to add the w to the power 5s together, so that makes 10. So it's 121 v to the power of 8 w to the power of 10. To find the resultant vector, we just get the two vectors and we add the tops and add the bottoms. And it's a plus minus 13, so it's 9 take away 13. When we do that, we get 13 at the top and minus 4 at the bottom. So the angle of elevation is when you are looking horizontally, like here. It's the angle that you have to look up to see something, so that castle. So this is the angle of elevation here, which I'm just going to call x. And we've got a right angle triangle here where we have two lengths and we're looking for an angle, so we're going to be using trigonometry. So we're just going to label this up. So we've got the opposite here, adjacent to here. We don't need the hypotenuse at all, so get rid of that. Let's just put our SOHCAHTOA in. So we've crossed out the hypotenuse, so it won't be sine or cos, it will be tan. So it will be tan x is equal to the opposite, which is 49 over 98. Get our lines in. And we're going to do the inverse tan of both sides. And so the inverse tan of 49 over 98 is 26.565, etc. And it says it wants the nearest whole number, so that will be 27 degrees. The equation of any straight line can be written as y equals mx plus c. So we need to find the gradient, which is m, and the y-intercept, which is c, for this line. Now, we are given a clue. We're told that it's parallel to this equation here, but we're not really interested in the plus 5 at the end. What we're interested in is what the gradient of this line is, which is 11, because all parallel lines have the same gradient. So we actually know what the gradient is for the line we're trying to work out. It's going to be the same because it's parallel, so it's going to be 11. So all we need to do now is find out what that plus c is. And what we're going to do is we're going to substitute in the values of x and y for the coordinate we're given on the line. So it's going to be 46 equals 11 times 4 plus c. And we just need to solve this. So first thing I'm going to do is just times the 11 and the 4 together to make 44. And then I'm just going to take away the 44 from both sides. So we get 2 equals c, or c equals 2. And we can put that into our equation. And that is our answer. So it's going to be 11x plus 2. With these questions, it's normally easier to view these as two separate triangles. So we've got a small triangle here with 19 and 47. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this out. And we've got a bigger triangle here. And we've got, well, we've got a bit of, we don't really know what any of the sides are just yet, but we can work them out. Okay, now we know that both of these triangles are similar, and the reason is they share an angle and the lengths at the bottom are parallel, so they will be similar, which means one's an enlargement of the other. And we are given some information in the question that the ratio of BC to DE is 1 to 6. So BC is this length here, and DE is this length here. So we're actually given the scale factor because we know that 1 times 6 is 6. So we know the scale factor is 6, and it's asking us to find length AD. And so the corresponding length to AD, which is this one here. So all we need to do is get that 47, times it by the scale factor, so times it by 6 to get to our value. So it's 282. So we're asked to express TQ in terms of P and Q. Well, we've got another Q here, because all of these are congruent parallelograms, and we have a P there. So if we're starting at T and getting to Q, we can go along this path here and down this path here. So we're going backwards down Q, in fact backwards down 2 lots of Q, and then the correct way down P. So it's either minus 2Q plus P or P minus 2Q. There are 2 outcomes that will end up with the athlete hitting one hurdle, and that will be jump hit here and hit jump here. If they jump both hurdles, obviously, or if they hit both hurdles, that's not them hitting one hurdle. So to work out the probability of ending up with jump and then hit, what we're going to do is we're just going to multiply those 2 probabilities together. So 4 over 7 times 1 over 10, which would be what, 40 over 70. And do the same with hit jump. So hit and jump will be 3 over 7 times 10 over 13. So 3 over 7 times 10 over 13, which will be 30 over 91. Now here's the problem. We've got 2 fractions, we've got 2 probabilities. We've got the probability it will jump and hit, and the probability it will hit and jump, or the athlete will. And we're looking at the probability of this one or this one. And the word or in probability means add. So we're going to do 4 over 70 plus 30 over 91. And using the calculator, that gives us 176 over 455. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing.